Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Hello, hello.
We're hoping that after 2, 3 weeks off, whatever it was, our audio levels are actually still okay, and our cameras work and that kind of stuff. Because honestly, we're not streamers. We don't know how this kind of stuff works, right?
So
Audio, video.
so let us know if there's an issue. Again, Joel is busy trying to escape the pit of Carcoon. That damn Jedi just right in the jetpack.
Poor
Uh,
Joel. I think he's probably actually snowed in on his own. Because it's just him now.
okay, hold on. How is that? I adjusted my mic. Let's see if the sound levels are better.
Oh, really? Ernest is back? Okay, huh. He sounds normal to me, but that's good to know because I can adjust that if needed. Better?
Okay.
All right, cool. Good.
All right, good. We're to go. So, intros. Who are you, sir?
Hi, everyone. My name is Galen Herbstick Cortina. I am one of the co-hosts of this show, Your Brand, Your Business. I'm a financial planner who works with streamers. I have several cats. And I'm going to UCLA basketball game tonight, so life's pretty good. How about you?
Is it good though? Because you're a Cal fan, so aren't you supposed to hating them?
No, are you kidding? They're our baby school.
Oh,
They're our splinter.
gotcha.
Plus, USC has lost in football to both Cal and UCLA this year, which is a hilariously bad year for them. So I am all about that.
For the private school that everyone hates,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, honestly, Cal football is just bad. Like, I love watching our team, but we are so bad. So, getting both of them to beat USC has been so great. But anyway, sorry, go on.
No, you're good. We go on tangents. Is what we do. So anyone not familiar, that's a lot of what we do on the show. My name's Ernest Jones. I am a certified public accountant who specializes in taxes, U.S. taxes. So I've helped streamers the last 4 or 5 years with various tax compliance issues, and those sort of things. I see. I'm going to say hi to OG in Indiana in the chat. Good seeing you guys. Because last time we were here was pre-TwitchCon. So
Oh, yeah.
how did your con go, Galen?
Honestly, pretty well. It was the kind of thing where my goals were basically get a chance to say hi to all of my clients who are there, maybe meet 1 or 2 prospects, and then just spend the rest of the time hanging out with people, getting to know them better, all that kind of thing. So it went pretty well for that. To compare it to my TwitchCon last year, I went there and I knew some folks going into it and had some people I was lined up to talk to and things like that, but generally didn't have I spent a lot of time sort of wandering the floor and things like that, which was fun as a fan. But this year it was really cool to just be like, no, I've got shit to do, the entire con. So
It was funny. So Galen and I do have some mutual clients because our disciplines kind of run in parallel, but very closely intertwined. And so we were trying to just say hi to
sorry,
people.
I just saw what Matt was
Yeah.
saying.
We were trying to run into clients that we had, and so we would disappear, and then I'd run into Galen again. Like, who are you running into? Wait, I know who you're trying to find. I will say the Would You Kindly event
That was great.
wind down was awesome.
Yes.
I had to extract myself because Galen kept saying, so somehow Galen ended up, I'm not kidding you, with 20 drink tickets. And so he's like,
I
you're
have
not
my
leaving?
connections.
And so I had to go before I made too much of a fool of myself. Because I just get very loud and kind of ball busty.
Do you want to talk about taxes at this wind down event?
What are you doing? Hello?
Mav still has tickets. There you go. Yeah, well, and they had a Mescal drink, so I was pretty happy with that. So my TwitchCon was great.
Yeah, I think it was a good event. It's getting bigger and bigger every year. So I
God.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how it'll get bigger next year, but I imagine it will.
I think this is the only time in my life that my status as a Twitch affiliate will actually have a material benefit to me because I was able to
Okay.
get in day one early.
Stop. I want you to know, Galen as an affiliate, he lorded this over all of us speakers on the panel who weren't affiliates. We're just us affiliates, we got in a day earlier. There's this line, and he was just look at him. Look, see, that's the face that he had every time he busts these.
It's true. Like I
we had
said,
a
it's
panel.
literally the only time it'll matter. So
Yeah.
I had to take advantage of it while it did.
We had a panel though. You can check the VOD out. I think we got good feedback.
I still haven't watched the VOD. I've been so busy since then. I need to do that.
And the other reason that we haven't done a show in a couple of weeks was because our mutual space, Galen and I, since we're in the same room, clearly,
yes,
was impacted by the wildfire.
Yeah, we didn't do a show last week because I was still evacuated because of fire. So thanks for waiting.
Yep. So, but thankfully, you know,
I'm back. I'm good.
Yeah, everyone.
Cats are relaxed.
Negatively impacted. So, you know, anyone who's in California, hopefully, you're okay. No one you know was impacted. Hope you're all doing well.
So, overall, TwitchCon was great. It sounds like yours was good.
Mine was good. It always starts weird, and then it always ends up well. And like the first day or two, I'm like, man, I'm wasting time and money. But always at the end, it always redeems itself, and you get into the rhythm of the con. So
yeah, the Magic the Gathering cards that I got and stuff like that. Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, I haven't even gone through all that nonsense yet.
I don't play Magic at all, so I just need to find people to whom I can give these decks because I have no use for them.
I'm sure you can find somebody if you're in the chat at Galen and find out if he'll go through whispers or something.
I don't even know what's in these. Like I should. I hear Black Lotus is a good card or something like that, but that's about all I know.
Okay, so we need to talk to Joel and find out if we can do a Your Brand Your Business giveaway. Magic the
There you go.
Okay.
But
so anyway,
I was going to say, the topic we actually wanted to talk about today, before we got off too rambly on all of the other things that have gone on in the month or so since we've done this, was we wanted to talk about year-end planning. And the reason for this, and I specifically in this case mean year-end planning for you as a streamer, year-end planning for your streaming business. And the reason we wanted to talk about this is because, frankly, we are way in the middle of it right now with all of our clients. What are you doing there, dude? Way in the middle of it with all of our clients because, you know what? Year-end is a month and a half away. And there's a lot of things to do before now and then. And if you're a client of mine and you're in the chat and we haven't scheduled something to talk about, you know, year-end planning, well, you have an email sitting in your inbox saying that you should. So, point being, year-end planning, important.
It's important. And one thing I always tell people is this. So my last big deadline of the year is October 15th. That's if you've extended your personal return and that's your last kind of time to timely file. And then right from there, we immediately transition to year-end planning. And everyone thinks, oh, I've got 10 weeks. I've got all the time in the world. Well, Thanksgiving and the year-end holidays. Yep. And also, Galen, you used to work a corporate job, right? And so did I in another life. And tell me if this is a true statement. The amount of work that gets done in the last 2 months of the year is basically nil.
Yeah. And some companies just straight up have, like some big local companies, like Amgen, for instance, just have the last 2 weeks of the year off. Mm-hmm. Because they call it like their holiday shutdown or something. And they already acknowledge that they're not going to get anything done, so they might as well give it as an employee benefit instead of paying to have the lights on. Because
the issue you have kind of big corporate is that even if you're able to get stuff done and you want to be productive, there's going to be delays in the chain and you're not going to get timely responses.
Yep.
And the reason we picked this topic is because it's very important for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
Tax being one of them, because that's my focus. But Galen, why would you say it's so important?
Well, the biggest one for me is, there are all sorts of technical reasons, including taxes, that it's extremely important. And taxes has been kind of the focus of what we've been working on with clients. But one of the biggest ones overall for your streaming business is actually taking the time to, at the end of the year, work on the business. So you spend most of the day-to-day working in the business, making sure that the stream actually happens. But if you got to take some time to work on the business to make sure that you're actually doing things that make sense strategically, that you know just what you're dealing with. So I'm really big on taking time to do both reflection and projection at the end of the year. Not intending to be Al Sharpton-ish with my rhyming and stuff. That's just how they go. But the reflection piece is huge. And this is also true just in your personal life, but especially true if you're a business owner.
There's a reason why people set New Year's resolutions. You can set a goal at any point, but because you have this neat separation of the calendar change, you should take that step back and actually evaluate how how productive the year is. One thing when Galen and I, because we're in different cities, but when we get together, we're like, hey, so like how, we measure it almost in TwitchCon as kind of the big landmark, right? And we're like, man, look how far kind of we've each kind of developed our own, our own personal goals from that last con. And, Galen and I went back and forth, and it's that you take that step back because, number one, you want to take the step back and enjoy all the growth and progress you've hopefully had and actually appreciate it, and then have perspective, because you may be in the grind of it all, in the moment to moment, and you may not actually think, man, I'm not where I want to be yet, but take that step back and you reflect on it.
It's very easy to see how much you still have to go and not how far you've come. So when you're looking back as a business owner on the past year, a couple of things that I think it's really important to look at are actually do your numbers. See how much you earned. See how much you spent. A, because it'll help you with your taxes, because that's the key information for it. And then B, because once you have that data, you can actually look at it and see, oh, was there an area where I spent more than I thought I did? Or was there a particular month where I did better than I normally do, or I did worse than I normally do? And you can try and figure out what kinds of things actually make a difference for your business. This is especially true when you're a streamer because, frankly, it's a newer industry. So there aren't as many just places you can go to find metrics that are actually relevant to you. You kind of have to make them. And so taking the time to look back and do that will give you so much helpful info.
And part of that too is we did a show, I want to say it was the one before TwitchCon where we were doing goal setting?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so one thing you should be doing is, whether you write it down in Word or actually on a hand piece of paper or on your phone, is looking back like, hey, I set an hour stream goal. Did I hit it? Why not? Was that productive? Did it lend me to how did that contribute to where I wanted to be and where I am now? I wanted to, have, some variety mixed in and not just the main game. I wanted to maybe do a main game for a couple of weeks and see how that worked out for the stream. So you want to do all of those reflective goal evaluations now as well, because then you start transitioning to the projecting, right?
Yep. And the projecting is super important. That's looking forward to next year, to 2019, and trying to see what might that look like. And you want to do, we've talked about this before, you want to do a couple scenarios. What would that look like if things stayed the same? Would you be okay? What would it look like if things grew a bit? What would it look like if things slowed down? But sometimes just seeing those numbers, even though you know that they're going to be wrong, right? The odds of your projection being exactly reality for the next year is functionally zero. But to give you just a ballpark sense of how it goes, that's something that can really help you define what you need to do. Because it is possible, and most of us who are business owners aren't good at recognizing this, it is possible to reach a point in business where you have enough. And when you have enough, if you're looking forward, you might just be looking at maintaining where you are right now. Maybe you also want to grow, right? Growth is generally the preferred thing. But you need to make sure that you're actually, something that you need or have to figure out or do or anything like that. Like, seeing those numbers in front of you can actually help give you those answers.
And so as an example, and I see your question, so I'll get to that in a second, but traditionally, so not for the market that we're both kind of pursuing, in tax, you tend to have a 5 to 15% attrition rate in old clients. Meaning, so you say you have 100 clients and you do their taxes every year, you're going to lose anywhere from 5 to 15 of them. So to maintain, you have to have a cycle of new prospects coming in to replace the ones that kind of either attrition out. If you have kind of a legacy practice of the ones that I'm going to be a little blue here that just die. You can't prep taxes for those that have passed. So that's a thing that happens too. So you kind of have to figure out, well, if you do want to maintain, what does that involve? And to the question in the chat about a plan that fits for streamers, it's tough to say because I think the array of streamers that I talk to all have varying goals to a degree, whether you're full-time or part-time or pursuing full-time. So I don't know if there's one that's a one size fit all. I think your approach of having a base plan and then adding in kind of your own perspective, which I presume is what you're saying, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And to tangent off of that, I don't think one plan for one person is going to fit for another. Right, Galen?
I totally agree on that. There are some good resources out there. Fizzle.co is a company that specializes in putting out a lot of education materials for small online-based businesses, which wouldn't be streaming specifically, but it would be the closest thing to like some of the resources that you're looking for. And really, a lot of them are just things like figuring out who it is that you're looking for your audience to be, how you will, in this case, entertain them, but broadly serve them. What makes you unique on it, and what are the things that you need to do over the course of the year to actually fulfill that. So there's one example. Let's see if I can do this link. So this isn't exactly a business plan, but this is Bonsai Baby, who's a partnered streamer on the platform, was on the Stream On Challenge earlier this year. And one of the things that she did as a part of her submission was a write-up on her business. Now, this isn't a full business plan, but a lot of the pieces in this would be valuable things to do that would give you sort of pieces of that business plan. So, for instance, who we are, just generally good to write about, but generally as a streamer, it's just you. You want to do something like your place in the market, that's really good. Like Ernest was talking about, are you a variety streamer? Are you a speedrunner? Are you someone who really specializes in this kind of game? Do you have a particular hook or generically a unique selling proposition that makes you interesting, right?
Listen to Galen. The Roblox directory is going to pop at some point, and me jamming myself into it for the last 10 years is going to pay off.
Well, and that is... I know people who make a full-time living playing very small games, but they hold the basically full market share of that very small game, right?
Yep.
One of my favorite streamers, and actually my second longest sub, Dolphin Chemist, was a Faster Than Light streamer. Faster Than Light is a very small indie game that came out 7 years ago, and now he's streaming Slay the Spire mostly, but he made a full-time living streaming that game, which didn't have a ton of viewership, but he was the guy in it. Mm-hmm. And so it worked. So like knowing those kinds of things makes a pretty big difference there. So all of that goes into the projections piece. You want to do the numbers projections, but you also want to do the strategic of like looking at, does my current time slot make sense? Looking at, am I doing everything that I can do monetization-wise? Am I potentially planning on introducing a merch line? Am I going to do something like set up Amazon affiliate links? Just all of those things that...
evaluating your community. That's something I think you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure people do it, but you're probably doing some of these steps passively and actively thinking about it. So, I think one piece to take from this show today is, maybe set aside 30 minutes. I know that's tough to find, or even an hour, and kind of actively going through these steps.
The week between Christmas and New Year's, or the part of time between Christmas and New Year's, I have blocked off on my calendar, and I'm not doing any client meetings because I'm going to be doing my work on the business during that time. It's that important to my business, mm-hmm. and it wouldn't be any different for a streamer.
And one thing in terms of actual projecting and planning, we have a mutual, and Galen at TwitchCon had to stop this person and literally grab the person by the collar and make an introduction because it makes sense for them to do this, but they weren't actively thinking about it. Super nice client, very good person, I would say. We're biased because, again, it's a client of ours, but
we both like him a lot.
But you have to take that step of being actively involved in the management of your business. That's just general advice, but as well as, looking
mm-hmm.
forward to the projections, because you do the merch line, maybe that does fairly well. Maybe that's, maybe that extra revenue says, maybe you want to go to MagFest or PAX East or PAX South, even though I've heard that that's a dead. Hey,
I'm going to PAX South.
I think I am, but I hear it's going to be you, me, a flock of geese, and the Alamo,
and the hurricane drinks at the $2 Thursdays at the Irish pub that's right near On the Rocks, which is the bar that most people go to. So we can manage.
Hold up. Wait. They have hurricanes there?
Yeah.
Those are the most dangerous drink that man ever invented.
And they sell them for like $2. I can probably find the photo. I might still have the photo.
Look, that's too much of a tangent, but I'll say this to wrap that up. Every day we stray further from God's light.
I blame Moblord. He's the one who took me there. But anyways, but yeah, like Ernest said, finding those extra monetization opportunities that work with your community, as opposed to being, squeezing blood from a stone kind of thing, are really good things to plan for, and they take time to do well, right? Doing a merch line isn't something that you go, I'm doing a merch line, done, right? It's something where you have to plan out ahead. You need to figure out the artwork. You need to figure out what kind of things you actually want on the merch. You need to figure out which platform you're using. You need to figure out how do you market it on the stream, because it's totally possible that you could launch a merch line, but if you don't tell anyone, no one knows to buy, right?
I think this is not unique to this industry, specifically because it's 2018. But if you look at this industry specifically, a failure to launch or a poor launch, like an early access game that is just terrible, everyone knows the score now, right? An early access game, that's the game. And if it's a terrible launch and it doesn't have that magic that pulls you in on a game side, you're probably going to refund it on Steam or do something like that. And so I think there's kind of an analogy there for a failure to launch merch line.
Yep.
Right? Just like, I have merch, here it is. And then it's a bad supplier, or it's not really thought out. It's not really lining up with your kind of stream, or
branding. You're a market leader, and then you wait 5 years to push it from alpha to beta, and then you're irrelevant, and then you're DayZ. But
they did. Okay, so I was scrolling through Twitter. So you just throw us on tangents, and I saw that they, on the beta, they removed all of the abilities to do keybinds or something.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
It was something crazy. And I thought, clearly this is like a meme or something. This isn't real.
I have no idea.
I just lost it, yeah.
But then it also, to get us back to topic, one thing too that, I'll admit some bias here too, but one other area to look at when you're looking at projections for the next year is, if you have all of these really cool initiatives, are those things that you can do on your own, or do you need to bring on help? Do you need an HB Fox to your Hunter Wild to help you do it? Or do you need to outsource your tax stuff to Ernest because you frankly don't have time to do your taxes while you're also doing all of these other really cool things, right? So a piece of it is not only lining up what you're going to be doing for the next year, or at least what you hope to do, but also figuring out how do you do it without burning yourself out, right? Because you are the core of this streaming business. So yes, you presumably want it to grow, you want to improve it, that takes man hours, but is that something that you need to be providing, right? So, for instance, there's a good chance, based on my projections in this next year, that I'll reach a point where it might make sense for me to bring on someone to do some administrative work part-time. That's something that I don't want to realize 2 months too late when I'm already so swamped with administrative work that I don't have time to go and find someone good to hire.
Well, and so let's run that analogy out, that example, because what happens then? Well, if it's 2 months later, then you're late, conceivably, on all of your other deliverable projects with clients, and now you're behind the quality of your service, or let's make it stream related, the quality of your content is not as good.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore the content suffers, the quality of service that you provide suffers, and therefore your attrition rate goes up. So you end up losing more clients than you thought. So it actually has a big impacting effect on the business, and it actually puts you further behind if you're still trying to grow.
Yep. I mean, and as a streamer, it could be you're spending so much time, editing YouTube videos that you aren't looking for sponsors, right? Something that you could hire someone else to do at a reasonable rate if they're taking, your VODs and converting them into YouTube videos. That's something that is easier to hire out than doing sponsorship search, because you can also hire that out. I know, several of the streamers in here work with management groups that do that kind of thing, or agency groups.
And your skill sets may not be suited to that. You may not be good in let's see, are the kids still using Adobe Premiere? Am I hip? No?
I have no idea.
But yeah, exactly.
I don't do this kind of stuff. I hire someone to do it if I'm going to put it together. Actually, that's not true. I use Hit Film 4 Express for the few YouTube videos I've made. It's free and it's pretty easy to use.
Mm-hmm.
But even so, is it actually probably worth my time to make those videos? Nah. I should probably just hire someone to do it. So if I do it in the future, I will.
I have a take for you, Galen.
Uh-oh.
Okay, you ready for this? So basically what you want to do is you want entry-level luxury. The most cost-effective dollars you can get. So like say you Olive Garden, right? You go next level up, Cheesecake Factory. So it's like, not your flying economy, economy plus, not first class. The jump between coach to economy plus is much greater for the value you're spending as opposed to economy plus the first class, right? So hiring a video editor, I'm gonna jam this analogy into what we're talking about.
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Makes more sense, right? Like, I can use HitFix +4, whatever, and
nailed it.
Yeah, crushed it, and use that as my video editor, or use Premiere Pro as HB Fox corrected me in the chat. So, that entry point of maybe I spend a little bit and it has a much more demonstrable effect on the business is my bigger point.
Yeah, I agree. Ernest, I'll give you Skyclop's question as a quick
aside.
Yep.
So I mainly answer questions on the U.S. tax side. I'm biased, so I'm of the opinion that you should always file a position with the IRS. And the reason for that is the burden is always going to be on the taxpayer in our current system. Meaning if you don't file and they find an issue with you not filing, that statute never runs out. But if you do file, you have a 3-year window for them to come back and take action to correct it. Depending on your situation, there are minimums. You can look them up online. Make sure it's just an IRS source. There's a quiz on their website that'll give you, it's probably a 15-minute quiz or so to see if you have a filing requirement. I'd recommend doing that if you really don't want to file.
Frankly, if you plan on earning income as a streamer, you should get your shit together enough to file, because that'll just be good for you business-wise to have that data that you can work with.
And it also gets you into the habit.
That's a nicer way of saying what I was saying. So we've talked we've talked for half an hour now about, projections and things like that. It's a really important topic. You can spend an endless amount of time on projecting different things. And one of the things that I also have to be cautious about when I'm talking about this kind of stuff is you want to make sure that you're not spending all of your time just projecting, because it's useful, but ultimately it's something that probably won't come to pass exactly as you're thinking through it. So you don't want to spend all of your time planning. You want to build yourself a broad strategic outline and make sure that you're actually referencing back to it over time.
What's the acronym, Galen? The definable, achievable.
Oh, SMART goals.
SMART goals.
Specific, measurable, attainable, R, and time bound. I don't remember what the R is.
Well done.
Yeah.
Listen, you got more than me. Because I would have gotten
R?
I think it's scoreable or something like that. Anyway. But that's the point, is that the projection that you're having has all those criteria so that you can, you're not saying I'm going to be the biggest streamer on the platform. That's more of the long-term, cool, man, that's awesome. You want to do that? Fantastic. But how do you get there?
Right. And it's not, and it's, the plan for become the biggest streamer on the platform isn't assassinate Ninja, right? Because you're still not number 2. So you have to figure out how
you have to assassinate probably 1,000 people.
More than 1,000.
To be clear, your brand, your business does not advocate assassinating streamers larger than you.
Well, and it's probably less work to just improve your stream than to really go through all of that. Relevant is the R. I looked it up. But the point being, you need to plan on you need to plan on the things that you can at least at some level control and work on, for building yourself up and making the best use of your skills as opposed to.
What if I'm really good at The Last Hitman in Assassin's Creed, though? Does that change my calculus at all?
Yes, because the last Assassin's Creed didn't involve much assassination, from what I recall. At least from what I watched, it was more like Red Dead Redemption.
Okay.
At least from what I saw, I didn't play it, but I watched Loco and Hunter play it, so that's what I have to base it off of. That's also what I have to base my Red Dead Redemption off of. So I don't know.
So one question I want to ask you, Galen, is: so what would you do? What do you think the most important thing to do in terms of short term? So the long term projections, you can kind of pick a date and kind of do that anytime. People tend to structure it around year end and planning, but since what's the financial side of this? Purpose.
Short term, before the end of the, projection wise, or just before the end of the year?
Both reflection and projection. We're talking in a 2-month window where I've got year end approaching. What should I be thinking about, whether I'm full time or part time?
What you should be thinking about is what is the next major objective that you're going to take on in the next year. The one thing that would be your focus if you had to pick one thing, and then how do you get that to move forward. So, for instance. It could be the year I get organized. Or for my investing clients, I've told several of them that 2019 is the year where I unwind them from having so much tech stock, because everyone forgets about the year 2000 when it comes to investing. No.
I hear it just goes up.
Exactly.
Right? It never ends.
That and weed are the two that you really go into.
But a great restaurant idea.
Weed? Is your restaurant idea weed?
I mean, I can neither confirm nor deny this, since this is a public setting. We'll talk after stream. But
it's picking one objective that will have a really big impact on your stream and making sure that you've thought that one through in depth.
Okay. And then what about the finance side of things?
I mean, it sort of depends on where you are, but I'd say if you're not using accounting software yet, start using accounting software. And if you're using accounting software, then it'd be setting yourself up to pay your quarterly taxes.
Well, and so let's talk. So we've got about 10 minutes before we want to throw it to questions. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that planning meeting that you and I had with a mutual client recently. So what we did, and this is my call to clients. I've emailed you already. I've also
emailed you already.
I've also probably sent you Discord messages. Get me some numbers.
Yes.
Because what we need the numbers for is
we're actually running this entire show just to shame our clients publicly.
I mean, that's not untrue. So one thing we do is when we do tax prep, or I specifically, a lot of professionals will do this. They'll say, here's your tax return. We got it done by April. And, assuming that your year is pretty similar, this is what you should make for quarterly payments. And then I always preface that, well, we're going to want to talk either June, it'll probably be later in the year, about potentially setting up some tax structure, potentially looking if there have been any major changes. Maybe you set modest goals, which is great, but you blew the projections on all of those and you turned the corner and you had all this extra, your stream blew up. So then, we want to talk about potentially, hey, is there something I should buy? Maybe I should buy some equipment that they were talking about. Like, so the last show was about budgeting, and maybe you're starting to, maybe you're buying some, small things that you planned for. Or maybe you project next year will be even bigger and you want to push those expenses to next year because they'll have a higher impact on lowering your taxes.
Frankly, I'm doing that. I desperately need a new PC and I'm waiting until January to buy it because I'm going to earn a lot more money next year than I did this year. And so that way I can write off that $1,000 or so for a PC against that income as opposed to this year's.
And one thing I would like to point out specifically on the tax side of things is, I've heard some people say in various streams, none of my clients or our clients, because they're very smart and beautiful and gorgeous and just the greatest people on earth. Don't roll your eyes, Galen. It's all true. But the key thing to note is that some people have the perception of, well, I have all this extra income. I don't really have expenses. I should I have to spend it for the tax savings. That's not true. So what happens is, let's say, easy example, you have $100 to spend, you're at the 24% tax bracket. All that means is that purchase only cost you only $76 effectively. Now, if you need the item you're buying, fantastic. If you don't expect your tax rate to change, also fine. But don't think that because you're spending $100, you're not sending that to the government.
Yeah.
Is one point I want to make. And then I will give the segue here. One thing Galen preaches, and I can't agree with it more, is making sure you have health insurance.
Yes, that's the next thing on my little notes list.
Okay, we're smooth. We're getting better, Galen.
It's well done. Health insurance is one of the big ones year end if you're in the U.S. We've got, shittiest system NA, and maybe world. Who knows? But
wait, that is the system NA. You can't.
Canada's North America. Mexico's North America.
I only recognize America.
It's just. Anyways, we've got a system where a large percentage of bankruptcies happen because of health costs, where health costs are pretty nuts high. And health insurance is often provided by employers. Well, if you're self-employed, you're the employer, so it's on you to provide your health insurance. There are some very useful tax breaks that you get as someone who's self-employed paying for your own health insurance, but that's something to make sure that you take care of. Health insurance open enrollment opened November 1st. It closes December 15th. So you've got a little bit less than a month to get that figured out. Yes, there are no longer any penalties for not having health insurance because we're doing our best to, get any sort of incentive to make sure that your ass is covered. But it's still an important thing to have. And so you got some time right now to get that figured out. That's a really important thing. And the reason it's a really important thing is because you don't want basically the stress of dealing with paying for medical issues to layer on top of the stress of actually having those medical issues. Both will be bad for your stream. And if you're relying on getting back to your stream relatively quickly, relatively healthily, do what you can to make that easier.
My soapbox on this is streaming tends to skew younger and hopefully healthier, right? Because there's this bit where someone says, pre-existing condition, you know what it is when you're older? It's you're old.
Yeah.
We all tend to break down over time. And so what I say about that is most people are healthy when they're younger, thankfully. And what happens is you're rolling the dice. And maybe you'll be fine, or maybe you won't, and God forbid something catastrophic happens to you.
I mean, if you're rolling a 20-sided die, that's still a 5% chance that you roll a nat 1, and that's not what you want in this case.
Is that's math.
That's not hard math. That's math I can do on the fly. But the point is, even if on average it's not something that people need, you can't afford to be the one not hitting the average, frankly. So that's something that you need to take care of. Plus, if you're self-employed, you get a deduction for paying your health insurance costs.
And one thing we also did with that client is we talked about potentially sheltering funds from taxes.
Yes.
So, and we use the term sheltering, the legal means for doing that, not kind of like the quote unquote tax shelter that you hear about that's illegal.
Not the Cayman Islands kind.
Yeah, we're talking HSA. So why don't you spend 2 minutes real quick, Gail, and talk
Sure.
about what that is.
So the general concept of sheltering income from taxes, and this is when you're much further along in your streaming career and you're earning more than you need for your day-to-day living, is that our tax system incentivizes you to do certain things by giving you tax breaks if you do them. Some of that could be putting money into something like a 401k through an employer or through an IRA. It could be putting in something called a health savings account, which is an account that if you have a high deductible health plan, lets you set aside money tax-free for healthcare costs. But doing those kinds of things can dramatically reduce your taxes. And if your taxes are something that you're really worried about and you want to double dip and also save for the future, you can give yourself some serious benefits doing it. Now, again, that's further along the line, and that's something that someone like me helps with. But that's still something that you want to be considering and figuring out, because that can, frankly, save you a lot, and it can save you even more if you've been delaying on paying your taxes, and so you can figure out that there's less that you actually owe.
Yeah. All right. So then the last thing, did we have anything else before we throw it to questions?
I had one quick one.
Oh, absolutely. Go for it.
Form 1099s. Tell us why you should be doing them as a streamer, even though probably literally no one is.
So the reason is,
What is a Form 1099?
A Form 1099 is a miscellaneous income form. What that gets issued from is it gets issued from a business. Your stream is a business, and it gets issued to a contractor. So, for example, let's say I hire Galen to do an emote for my stream. I'm going to pay him $600 for that because that is the minimum.
I say 600 is the minimum to issue. Let's say you hire me to do your emotes several times over the course of the year because you're someone who does holiday emotes, game day emotes. You get a bunch more subs, so you've got more slots.
Oh, Galen, we just met. Let's slow down.
I mean, if you want to pay me 600 to make you an emote, sure.
Okay, but so at the start of the relationship, you should request a W-9 from Galen. Now, what that is called a, let's see if I remember the title of the form. It's a request for taxpayer identification number.
That sounds right.
And what that is, it's a simple form from them. It has them fill out their name, address, and their tax identification number. What you will do as a business is you will pay him, you will issue a 1099 at year end, indicating to the IRS that you've paid this person $600 or more. And the reason it's important is because if you hire a lot of contractors, and this is an issue kind of when you're really far along in your streaming career, you pay your mods, you have artists that you go to.
Community managers, YouTube video editors, anyone that you might pay to help you run the business.
You may hire someone for the few cons you go to help manage your schedule, and that's, maybe you pay that person $1,000 or something. Mm-hmm. And the reason it's important is because you validate anyone you hire as a contractor, essentially someone you should be issuing a 1099, 600 or more. The reason it's important is because that validates the expense. In other words, the IRS really doesn't have an idea of who you're paying for what, but if you're issuing them a 1099 to them, the IRS knows that you sent them income because you send this both to the person you contracted with and the IRS. So what happens is they know that not to go knocking down your door for it. They know to go to that person if they haven't reported it. Now, the one common question I get is, I didn't get a 1099, Galen. Do I have to report that income?
Yes.
Yes. The burden is on you to report all of your income, whether or not you receive a tax document.
But yeah, so that's one that I see almost always get missed, but is actually something that you should be doing. And if you're doing some of the other things that we've talked about over the course of this show, like doing your accounting and documenting all of these expenses in relatively real time as opposed to at year end, you'll be much better prepared to do that kind of thing.
You're flexible. You're able to maneuver quickly rather than having to go through 9 months worth of data.
Yes, exactly. So that was sort of the last notes thing that I had for year end of things that are commonly missed. I think we open up to questions. The first one being about the porg in your background.
Well, I'll get to that in a second. So there was a question about what's a valid business expense when you're a streamer. Mm-hmm. So this is specifically for U.S. taxpayers or U.S. business. Well, this, I think, is a good metric for worldwide owners, but specifically on the tax side, U.S. So my standard spiel is it's impossible for the IRS to say, what's a valid business expense definitively in every business that has existed, currently exists, and will exist in the future. Think of the last 5-10 years. Social media really wasn't a thing. Influencers, content creation, whatever you want to call it, broadcasters, didn't really exist. Justin TV was 6 years now, I want to say?
It was 6 years ago that it made the switch to being Twitch, I think.
Twitch, yeah. And so it's a two-pronged test. And that two-pronged test is ordinary and necessary. Now, the way I explain it is that's not the clinical definition of those terms. It is it common in your industry? And is it helpful to what you do? So a common question we get is, hey, can I write off my subscriptions to other streamers? Galen, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a marketing expense.
Or a networking
expense, whatever you want to call it.
And that may seem slimy to you, but that's, part of the reason you're doing it to a degree, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully that answers the question. Now to get to the poor question. So as anyone who follows the show regularly, you may recall that I always end the show saying, "Hey, we got to get that dagger for our rogue." Well, that's our rogue, and we've gotten him both of his dagger and his offhand finally.
There you go.
To answer the question though, it is a porg, and let's see, hopefully this isn't too loud.
Oh God. Chewbacca should have eaten them all.
I agree.
So then, would you issue a 1099 to a programmer? That's one other question. What do you mean by programmer in this case, Gregel? Like, what's the context there?
And while we're waiting on the answer, I would issue a 1099 for anyone I've contracted with for an amount of 600 or more.
Yep.
You should be doing this for everyone. The magnitude.
Oh, Gregel does website design and stuff like that for at least some streamer clients.
Gotcha.
So that's the context, right? We've got if they should be paid in general, yes. But yeah, also, I mean, but you know, when Loco had you build her little Loco Booker game or whatever it was, theoretically, if you got over $600 for that, that could be a thing. Ha, see. Some other ones I saw, Twitch is still obligated to send out their 1099s in the same time frame as other businesses. Yeah. So if you're issuing a 1099, you're supposed to issue that by January 31st of the following year. So for 2018, you should be issuing that 1099 by January 31st of 2019. Twitch is on the same schedule as everyone else.
And that means it should be issued to the individual receiving it and the IRS.
Yes.
So they need to be going.
And the reason
they're really easy forms.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, yeah, they're very easy forms. They're not very difficult. It's name, address, tax identification number, and the amount in the other income or non-employee compensation. Very simple.
Yep. And the reason that you have to do it by January 31st is because the person receiving it has to file their taxes by April 15th. So you need to give them a decent window of time in which to receive and process that information. Theoretically, they should also have it, but yeah. Wes asks, mentioned that streamers should be using tax/accounting software. What would I recommend on a budget? Wave accounting is free and okay. Zero is free or inexpensive. I don't remember which, and pretty decent. QuickBooks Online is like $15 a month for the version that you need as a streamer.
And that's the version that issues your 1099s for you. Perfect transition. Look at you.
And it's the version that every accountant in the friggin' world knows how to use. So if you take a QuickBooks export to your accountant, they'll be like, I can use this. So there are free versions, which are pretty good, and there are paid ones that are very good. Currently, I'm using something called FreshBooks, which is costing me like $15 a month as well. The reason I use FreshBooks is because their invoicing was better at the time that I started using them. I'm actually going to be transitioning to QuickBooks next year, which is going to be a pain in the ass. Ugh.
Well, once you do the transition, I mean, that's the
thing. It's a one-time pain in the ass, but it's still going to be a pain in the ass. Ugh. And I reminded myself of it.
One general accounting tip I have is that not to put a bunch of I see this, whether you're a streamer or not, is putting too much detail in the actual categories. So by that I mean you'll put like dues and subscriptions, and then you'll list everyone, or you'll put, like equipment, office equipment, blah blah blah, like a bunch of things. Really, what you want to do is you want to have catch-all categories like utilities and supplies and things like that, and then have the detail in there, and then you can dive into that account and get that detail that you need should you need it. Yeah,
the only times I go into more detail are because that information is useful to me, not to my accountant. So like I go into more detail about whether this expense is a prospect sub or a client sub, because that information is useful for me to have. How much am I spending on marketing versus how much am I spending to basically say, hey clients, I appreciate you.
Yep.
Right? Because those are, and also because I have limits in how much I am supposed to be able to give as gifts throughout a year to a client. So I'm also trying to monitor that. But if you're going to go into more detail on accounting stuff, do it for yourself and do it as a subcategory of a major category where your actual accountant doesn't have to worry about what exists in that subcategory.
And we're probably talking way too in-depth in the forest here, but once you start playing with it, it'll make sense. So I'd say, once you get there, revisit this brief 5-minute aside and look at what we're talking about in terms of your accounting at that point.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions? I think we got them all.
Yeah, I think so as well.
So then, what have you got for the next week for fun, Galen?
Well, it's Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
I am going down to visit my extended family in San Diego, which is going to be a blast because I come from a family of people who are extremely good cooks, and they're all going to be gathered in one place. And on Thursday, we're getting the sort of traditional Thanksgiving-ish dinner, plus my grandfather also always smokes a prime rib, so that's going to be super good.
Nice.
And then on Friday, we're having a family thing at my aunt's place where they are literally like bringing a taco truck to her house.
Awesome. Well, so here's the thing I have to ask. Does your family do tamales? Is it tamale season?
We do those at Christmas. So
soon then.
It's soon. So for Christmas, my parents throw a big holiday party for everyone because my family's not particularly religious. So the actual event of Christmas is more everyone has the day off. So they do a thing for neighbors, friends, family. Everyone comes by, and my parents buy several dozen tamales of different types. And then when you come to the party, they have tamales, they have pozole, they have a couple other sort of more traditional holiday food items. But if you want to have tamales, they've also got a separation set up with the hojas, with the masa, with the different fillings and things like that. And you got to make a tamal to eat a tamal. And then they just run the steamer basically all day. So that's pretty good. And then you've got the abuelitas, so a couple of them who set up and just make a bunch of them because that they frankly love doing that to contribute to everyone having good food. But so then at the end of that, I always get a crap load of tamales from my parents because they have leftovers, and you can really easily tell who was random neighbor who came in and made one because they wanted to eat a tamal, and which ones were made by the abuelitas who have been doing this for decades.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's Thanksgiving, so we're hosting this year. So
nice.
That's I don't know, family, cousins, all that stuff. It started at 10 and now somehow it's grown to 15, which is concerning.
Yeah,
so I don't know. Oh, you're fine. Yeah.
We'll be at 30.
I make very good mashed potatoes, so that's my chore, as well as general assistance in the kitchen.
I'm kicked out of the kitchen. I am a really good cook, and I do most of the cooking here for day to day for our family. I am told bring an appetizer, get out of the kitchen, so that they have room to operate because they're having to cook for so many people that they just hand it over to the professional chefs in the family and say everyone else was in the way. Get out.
All right. Well, you've got a UCLA game.
Yes.
So let's get to outros.
Yeah.
So I'm Ernest Jones. I am a CPA. I mainly focus on tax compliance and tax planning for streamers. You can find me on Twitter. Let's see. Is it on there?
There's probably an Ernest command, right? Yeah, there must be.
Yep. There you go. DMs are open if you ever need assistance or want to ask a quick question tonight. So we've got to get our terrible demon hunter a warglaive apparently, and our mage never asks for anything, so I don't know what we're hunting for him. So that's the objectives.
My name is Galen Herbstay Cortina. I'm a financial planner. I help streamers figure out their business stuff, do their personal budgeting, help them with investing, everything in their financial life. And I also help non-streamers with that, although I primarily focus on streamers. I'm going to UCLA game in an hour, which I'm really looking forward to. They're going to presumably stomp on the no-name that they're playing. It's a tune-up game.
Western Presbyterian Blue.
The Presbyterian is the college. And then as far as I can tell, so it's like the UCLA Bruins. As far as I can tell from Google, they are the Presbyterian Blue Hose. Like H-O-S-E, not H-O-E-S. Blue Hose.
Well, when you're down there, find out if they would be interested in a Streamersquare sponsorship, and then we can run it by Loco and Hunter.
I have no idea what. Yeah, I'm baffled by that. And besides that, I just got a text from my wife that says, "I can play Breath of the Wild, please." because she's
there
at
you go.
work and would rather be playing Breath of the Wild. So for the next hour, I'm probably going to be playing Breath of the Wild and maybe sending her a screenshot or two of it.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm a good husband. But,
All right.
Yeah, we will.
See you next week.
I think we'll be back next week. I know of no reason why we won't be back next week.
Unless there is an act of...
there was a fire that interfered before. There could be a fire again. I hope
Stay
not.
safe in California. Stay safe traveling. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.
Shouts to Sovereign for Server First Cahoon. They did it.
Nice.
Woo!
Cahoon. I didn't know that was how you said it. I'm not allowed to play WoW anymore by myself. Like, I personally do not allow myself to play WoW because I get way too into it. But yeah, we will figure out a topic for next week and tweet about it ahead of time. Thank you, everyone. See you later.
Thanks for coming. Have a good one. Bye.